Military tensions between the West and Russia are at their highest in years, and at the center of it all is Ukraine. An estimated 100,000 troops are near their shared border. Ukraine says Russia could be planning an invasion for January. Russian President Vladimir Putin accuses the U.S. and NATO of taking an aggressive line in the region, an accusation the White House denies.
The only aggression we're seeing at the border of Russia and Ukraine is the military buildup by the Russians and the bellicose rhetoric from the leader of Russia.
Diplomatic talks are planned for sometime in January, but the Kremlin is asking for a major concession, a written guarantee that Ukraine will not be allowed to join the NATO military alliance. So where is all of this headed? Roman Waschuk served as Canada's ambassador to Ukraine from 2014 to 2019. On January 1st, he will become the business ombudsman of Ukraine. Mr. Waschuk is in Toronto and joins us now. Thanks for taking the time today.
You're very welcome.
So what's your take on all this? I mean, what's Putin's end game here? Is he intent on invading Ukraine, do you think, or is this about, Russia stopping the prospect of Ukraine one day joining NATO?
Well, there's, I think, two vectors here. One is Putin's intention to get Russia back as a great power with a sphere of influence that basically redraws the post-Cold War map of Europe, basically rolling it back to at least 1997 and maybe 1987, to basically the late Soviet period. That is a long time Moscow dream. He's now gone about it very energetically, and it's not desirable from the Western point of view, but it's not an irrational thing for a Russian leader to want to do. But Putin's attitude to Ukraine is largely irrational. He explained today that it was invented by Lenin, which is clearly a kind of a historical fantasy. He's living somewhere in the late Tsarist period when it comes to attitudes towards Ukrainian identity. So there's a kind of a great power calculation that affects all of us in the Euro-Atlantic space, and a particular animus for Ukraine.
Who's got the upper hand right now, do you think?
I would say that Mr. Putin is driving the discussion. Back in April, he marshaled the forces. Then he sent some of them home, but left most of their equipment in place. So now he's ratcheting it back up, while at the same time going all histrionic on us and saying, oh my God, the West is being aggressive, at a time when most of our leaders just want to handle Omicron, deal with domestic issues in the US, and would rather the whole thing just went away. So that's the challenge for the West, is how do you stand up? How do you engage in dialogue without appeasing, but while looking for a peaceful way out?
I know from where I normally work in Washington, there's a lot of talk that, Putin is choosing this time because of the political disarray in America and the divide there, that he sees this as a potential chance to move. Would you agree with that?
I think he sees some of that. He's looking at the transitions in Germany and France, sees it as a chance. He's also seeing basically Ukraine slip away. I mean, you notice that you mentioned my new job coming up January 1st. Ukraine's the kind of country where somebody from outside is allowed to come in and be an ombudsman to deal with issues that business has, domestic and foreign, with the state. Russia is increasingly a very closed off, repressive state where even their own civil society organizations are being crushed, not to mention political opposition. So he's sensing that this country that is important to him because of his peculiar beliefs about its role in Russia's history is drifting away, and maybe as the generations change, irreversibly so.
I think when people think about Ukraine, we talk about the buildup along the border, but there's the pipeline as well that doesn't seem to get as much chat. And that gives Russia a lot of leverage. And I wonder if you think it gives Europe pause, given that Russia controls that pipeline. How does that factor into this, do you think?
Well, the pipeline discussion basically goes along two separate pipes. One currently existing one going through Ukraine. And there's a mutual dependency. Right now, Russia can't get its gas to Europe without it going through Ukraine. That's why they've been so keen on building this other pipeline under the Baltic Sea that would allow them to bypass Ukraine and ultimately cut it off and have their way with it. So right now, that other pipeline isn't yet in service. It's being it's in long and complicated German licensing procedures, and we've been hearing some encouraging words from the Germans saying that they intended to have a good hard look at the fact that it's not just an energy project; it's a geopolitical project.
So, but bottom line is that so far it does not appear any major NATO ally is willing to respond militarily to a potential Russian invasion. That the only thing on the table are economic consequences. Is that enough to stop Putin?
I would say if I'd been writing the talking points, I would have left some more strategic ambiguity on the table, because explicitly taking military options off the table kind of encourages the other guy, especially when he's much more of a risk taker than your own leaders are. But I think what people in Washington have been talking about is military assistance, not troops, but technology and possibly support for Ukrainian resistance. The Ukrainians have an army of 250,000 people, battle-hardened, and many reservists who are now signing up. So it's by no means a cakewalk, foregone conclusion how this sort of attack would work out. I think the well-known adage that no plan survives first encounter with reality and the enemy.
As you well know, Ukraine has asked Canada to deploy more troops to Ukraine and to expand the scope of its mission to that country. They're making similar asks of the UK and the US. Do you see any chance of that happening, given how precarious everything seems to be right now?
I think people will be focused on how the initial rounds of dialogue, such as it might be, go. But again, I would encourage policymakers now to think about asking the Russians to put the gun down for while the discussions are ongoing. Right now, having a gun to the Ukrainian head, to the collective Western head, is not an incredibly good position from which to start dialogue.
I've just got a few seconds left, but what are you looking for in the new year? What should we all be watching for to see how this develops?
Well, I think who's involved in the dialogue? Is it just Washington talking to Moscow in some sort of new Yalta discussion, or is it more inclusive? And do the Western countries bring their own concerns about Russian behavior to the table?
Wow, good chat. Thanks for all of that. Appreciate your time.
You're very welcome.
Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks, same to you.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.